I am back. I feel like I've been gone forever. Actually, for like 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, I haven't made a video. I feel super weird sitting in front of the camera again, but here we are. I am here to talk to you about what I have been reading the past 2 months over the summer, and I will be honest, most of it is romantasy because I am kind of dipping my toes more into that and really enjoying my time. I've found some awesome new favorites, and then I've also found some duds. So let's just go over what I've been reading. I think the last video I did mention this series, but anyways, if I didn't, I'll just talk about it right now. I did continue on with the Boys of Tommen series, and this is Saving Six and Redeeming Six. This is continuing on with the story, kind of. It's following a separate couple, and it kind of spans from like the time that they were 12 until they're 17. So these two stories is basically just one huge book. I really, really love these two books, but I do have to say that I love Binding 13 and Keeping 13 much more. I don't know why. It just hit me more. Also, these two books do cover a lot of like drug abuse and drug addiction. It's a topic I usually try to avoid because I don't really like movies and books that focus around drug addiction. So that's kind of why these two books didn't really hit home for me. I think I gave this one 5 stars and I gave this one 4.5 stars. Also, that these books are incredibly long, and sometimes I feel like the author could have cut down some of the fat in between and just got to the point a little quicker. But there is lots of time. These are character-driven books. You're basically sitting with these characters as they go through their life in like the dailies. So you go to work with them, you go to bed with them, you really learn about these characters and you fall in love with them and you feel like they're your best friends, basically. There is something in these books that just are so compelling, so addictive. The characters are just so endearing. The best friendship, the best romances. I can't recommend it enough. Like, even for people who don't read that sort of thing, I still think that you should give it a try. I even lent the first book to my best friend who doesn't read that sort of thing, and she devoured it. So just to let you know, give it a try if you're thinking about it. You can find the first book on KU and also through your library and also bookstores because it is now in bookstores. Continuing on with my romantasy, I read Never Keep by the Twisted Sisters. This is the same author duo that wrote the Zodiac Academy, but this is a brand new series. Although it is in the same universe or world, you don't need to read Zodiac Academy in order to read this. So this is a school setting book, but it's kind of like more of like a war school. All these kingdoms that are actually at war with each other send their children to learn, or their young adults to learn at the school together to kind of develop relationships and stuff like that. And we are following two characters, two girls, and they are both from completely different opposite sides. They're enemies, and it just kind of goes from there. So the way that I can phrase this is like, it is got the drama of Vampire Diaries and the epic world building of like epic fantasies, but also it's got a lot of humor. So it has a lot of everything. Unfortunately for me, I did read this in the beginning of the summer, and frankly, looking back now, I don't really remember very much about the plot or the characters. I kind of remember how it ended. Lots of people love it. Like, lots of people say that it's like one of their favorite series, and they gush about it, but for me, it just kind of didn't really fulfill what I was looking for at the time. So I actually gave this 3.75, and I may continue on, but I haven't quite decided yet. So that's just kind of where it stands. So the next book is probably my favorite book that I read all summer long, and that is Bones by K.L. Spears. This is a indie published book, and it is post-apocalyptic, kind of dystopian fantasy romance. And I just... how do I explain this book? This book made me bawl my eyes out. Oh my God. I have never experienced a book that has just punched me in the emotions as much as this book did. So this book is following Bones, who has magical healing abilities, and she lives in this like post-apocalyptic world. I can never say that. That's kind of very reminiscent to like Mad Max or almost Last of Us, but without the zombies. And yeah, she's in this like very not nice world, and she has these healing abilities, and because she does, she is used her entire life, used and abused, and it is horrific. Something happens and she finds herself in this new community, and unfortunately she's still kind of being used, but because it is a huge community, she gets to meet new characters and new people. And the found family in this is just the best found family I have read ever. The romance in this is the best romance I have read. It's developing naturally. It is not like, oh, I saw them and I'm instantly in love, or, oh, I hate them, but now I love them. It's just, it progresses so smoothly that it just, yeah, I couldn't stop reading it. However, this book is incredibly traumatic, and you are reading through a perspective of somebody who is damaged. Which can be really difficult to read through at times. So just warnings. There is every trigger warning you could possibly think of in this book. But honestly, it was probably one of the most sad, beautiful books I've ever read, and I highly recommend it. Obviously, I gave it 5 stars. And then obviously, I picked up the sequel, Fangs. And unfortunately, this book is not on KU, so I had to order the copy, which is fine with me. I'm going to order the copy of Bones as well. And I continued on, and just, yeah, the pain and the sorrow continues on through this book, and it was a lot. I do have a little bit of disclaimer. I don't recommend this book if you're not into character development and you want more of a world building. It is purposely done that the first 2 books are really focused around character development than world, because you are following this woman who is very stuck in her own head. So you're not going to get a lot of world building, but trust the process. Trust the process. This book, though, the beginning was really difficult to get through because the main character, Bones, is going through some stuff, and you're very much stuck in her head while she's going through it, and she does a lot of frustrating things. And yeah, it gets a little frustrating because you kind of feel like the plot is on loop. But I feel like there's a reason for that, because when it gets out of that loop, oh my gosh, it gets so good. And then the world expands. The world expands, and you get more of the world building. You get more answers to the questions that you had in the first book. Oh, it's delicious. And the way that K.L. Spears wove the story from book 1, I am incredibly impressed. I don't see that too often with romantic fantasies, to be honest. She wove it so well, like almost like these 2 books were written at the same time. Maybe they were, I don't know. Even like the littlest things that happened in Bones had such a big impact in this book. So yeah, I rated this book 4 stars at the time. I think because I was just a little upset with the beginning, but I think I'm going to bump it up to 4.5 stars because honestly, it was such a good book. And I can't recommend this series enough. I need the 3rd book, and I might try to get an arc, which I never ever do. So that's how much I love this series and really recommend it. From there, I continued on with another KU read, and that is Us Dark Few by Alexis Patton. And this is a post-apocalyptic dystopian romance. And I won't even say it's romantasy because there's no fantasy, and this is more sci-fi, if anything. So basically, it's like the show Silo or the book Wool. Something happened to the planet, and humans are now forced to live underneath the earth in like underground bunkers and in societies that are obviously like, you know, dystopians, basically. So we're following a young character that kind of finds herself in trouble, and she gets thrown into the prison where they throw all the bad people, and basically these prisoners are forced to do manual labor. And because she's thrown in this prison, she meets this super hot guard guy who hates all prisoners for personal reasons. It's just kind of like their journey in this underground prison and her surviving, and then him kind of helping her survive. And yeah, we'll just leave it like that. I really did enjoy this. I didn't love it as much because, like I said, this is very much like Silo or Wool. All I could think about was that show while I was reading this. And I found that the dialogue was slightly a little bit on the juvenile side, even though we are dealing with a lot of heavy topics. So currently there are 2 books out. I read the first one. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on with the series at this point, but I believe the 3rd one is coming out next year, I believe, or maybe I'm just making this up. Anyways, at least 2 books are out, and they're both on KU if you're interested. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. All right, back to the romantasy. I picked up Heavenly Bodies by Manny Iriu, and I'm probably said that last name wrong. I'm so sorry. So this is following a young woman who is kind of like a celestial god-like kind of person. And she is basically on the run because her kingdom was attacked and her family was... And so she flees to another kingdom to seek refuge. She goes to this kingdom and she is basically thrust to train with the prince of this kingdom because she has special powers that they really want to use to win their war. So it follows these two characters navigating their new relationship, having to work with each other, having to adjust that they are enemies, and obviously it goes from there. It was brought to my attention because it was advertised as slow burn and enemies to lovers, which I'm sorry, it is not. They are on opposite sides, but that time period is very short. Personally, I found that this story didn't really grab my attention. I was kind of bored a lot. I was listening to the audiobook. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But I was bored. And frankly, looking back, speaking about it, I don't really remember very much about it. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. Obviously, it may be just a me thing because most people who read this book absolutely love it. So I do recommend it if you're looking for a unique romantasy. Next up, I read one of my most anticipated releases of this year, and that is A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McNewan. I love Stacey McNewan. I follow her on Instagram and TikTok. She is hilarious. I love her content, and I did read her other series. I can't remember the name of it. It starts with Ledge, really unique fantasy. And I wanted to read this because it was advertised as like Peaky Blinders meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I'm like, Peaky Blinders, say no more. Also, the sprayed edges are just insanely beautiful. This book is beautiful. So in this world, the higher ups have magical abilities, and basically they are put into this academy and basically trained to be, I guess, soldiers or generals or whatever. And so we're following a young woman who really doesn't belong there, but she's there. And the first part of the book spans like a couple years of her life. And then it skips to something really bad happening and she finds herself on the run. And then it skips to like 7 years later and she's like an adult. And she finds herself being captured by the rebels, I guess. And then we meet the guy who is very much like the guy from Peaky Blinders. And yeah, that part is very Peaky Blinders, like to the T. I don't want to give too much away, but honestly, the way that it spanned out, it is very memorable. I remember a lot about this book, even though I read it 2 months ago, and I absolutely loved it. I will have to say, if you don't like cliffhangers, I would wait till the second book comes out, because the cliffhanger at the end of this one, I'm not okay with. I am not okay with that cliffhanger. Like Heavenly Bodies, I recommend this for the unique fantasy, and also the characters are just so good. I absolutely love them. I can't wait to read the sequel of this whenever it comes out. I rated this 4.25. Another new release romantasy is In the Veins of the Drowning by Kaylee Cassidy. I read this while I was at the cottage, which is around water, and this is about sirens, but it's kind of like not your typical sirens. It's like the traditional scary sirens. And we are following this one young woman who is basically trapped in this kingdom, and she's kind of like held against her will, and they're doing the really nasty, gross things to her just to keep her submissive. And then something happens and she gets this opportunity to escape, and she takes it. She takes this opportunity, she clings to it, and this king from this other kingdom decides to basically takes pity on her and whisks her away to his kingdom. But of course, because she is powerful, the person who had her before wants her back. The relationship between the king and the siren is just so, honestly, it's sweet. It's sweet. And the atmosphere is just creepy and kind of gothic and dark and gloomy. And it was a good atmospheric, vibey book to read. A lot of people who read this gave this 5 stars, and it's like one of their favorite books of the year. It didn't hit home for me. I think that I really enjoyed it. And honestly, it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite movies, The Last Unicorn, like a lot. So if you like that movie, you may enjoy this as well. But for me, I wasn't as invested. I wasn't obsessed with this as I wanted to be. So I only gave this 4 stars, which is still pretty good. I do recommend this for people who don't even like romantasy, but they kind of want to dip their toes into something. I feel like this is a good transition from like adult fantasy romance to romantasy. I was on a roll for picking up new releases, and I picked up Rose in Chains by Julie Soto, a Hermione Draco Malfoy fan fiction. Originally it started as that, but then when it got published, I think they changed a lot of things. I didn't read the original self-published book, but from what I know, it was changed dramatically. I feel like the story is pretty much the same, but details like names and magical abilities and the world building is a little bit different. This is kind of like an alternative reality of Harry Potter where the main character is actually the sibling of the Chosen One, and in the big battle, the Chosen One actually, you know, loses. And so it's kind of like the aftermath of what happens. Basically, the people who lost were put in chains and used as basically, what do they call them here? They use them as siphons, basically. They steal their magical powers and use it for themselves and basically drain these people. So it's pretty dangerous. So she ends up in an auction, and lo and behold, her old classmate, the Draco guy, decides to buy her. I devoured this book in 2 days, which for me is a big, huge feat. It is really addictive, but there are a lot of issues, so do check your trigger warnings and check their whatever just to make sure, because obviously you're dealing with somebody who is a slave. So it's not happy-feely. Although I did devour this, I did find that there were some issues that I had with it. Sometimes the plot was a little bit too convenient and predictable. But overall, really enjoyed it. I loved the relationship in this. And this is a slow burn. And the relationship in this is just, it was everything. It just kept my interest the whole time. So yeah, so I do recommend this for my Draco Hermione lovers, because I apparently am one too. I ended up only giving this 3 stars, but I'm really, really interested for what happens for the rest of the series. The next book is a book that has been on my TBR for years, and I'm not joking when I say years. I'm pretty sure this book has made an appearance in a video or two. And that is A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. This is a Viking romantasy, and basically it was inspired by the Vikings show, and the main character is inspired by Legolas. Legolas, is that her name? I can't remember. Anyways, so we are in this Viking-inspired world, which I love. I love anything Vikings. So this is following a young woman who is basically forced to marry this older guy, and something happens, and she is now being forced to marry this other guy. She's a hot commodity because she has a drop of the goddess's blood. So because of that, she does have magical powers. But she doesn't want to be a wife. She actually wants to be a warrior. That is her inspiration. And yeah, this poor woman is thrust around and tossed around by men and used, and it sucks. It sucks. Okay, so spoiler alert, I did not like this book. I was so bored. I listened to the audiobook, and there was nothing really that gripped me. I liked the world. I liked some of the character. I liked some of the ideas, but there was just something that just really, really missed for me. So I ended up only giving this 2 stars. And maybe that's just a me thing, because I do know that there's some people that say this was one of their favorite books of the year that they read it. I'm going to keep it because I do love these beautiful sprayed edges, and this is probably one of my favorite covers of all time. So I'm going to keep it. But yeah, I'm not going to continue on with the series, even though it's a duology. So bummers. Let's talk about the books that I DNF'd. Okay, so the first, I wouldn't say it's the first book I DNF'd, but the most recent book I DNF'd, so I can think about it and talk about it right now, is The Wolf King by Lauren Palraifman. I'm probably saying that wrong. This was brought to my attention because it was compared to Outlander and A Court of Thorns and Roses. And so I'm like, okay, I'm interested. It's Wolf Shifters. Why not? So I got the audiobook because everybody recommended the audiobook because the Scottish narrator. And so I picked it up, and I think I only listened to maybe about 3 or 4 hours of it before I'm like, this is just not for me. And the main reason is I hated the main character with a passion. And I'm not one of those people that can read a book if I can't relate to the main character. If I can't relate, I won't enjoy my time. And I really disliked her. She is a princess, and she is naive, arrogant, entitled, pretty much everything you think of a pampered princess, but I feel like the writer was trying to make her likable, and it was just it didn't work for me. This story is kind of like a regurgitation of a bunch of stories I'm going to talk about. But basically, she's captured by this enemy clan of shifters, and she kind of is now living with them, and they're treating her better, obviously. And she meets this like super hot shifter guy. It's just your typical romantasy plotline. I don't really have to say anything else. I guess a lot of people do love this, and they did like rate it and think that it was amazing. Apparently the second book is better than the first, but honestly, I just couldn't get behind that main character. And I'm like, you know what? I can't follow the story with two guys lusting after this one woman who is just so annoying. And yeah, I couldn't do it. So I DNF'd it. And I'm so sorry for people who loved it. I'm sure that there are things that I'm missing out, and maybe it does get better. Maybe I will like it, but I couldn't do it. The next book I DNF'd will probably surprise a lot of people, and that is Metal Slinger by Rachel Snyder. Okay, so I really had high hopes for this book. I really did, because I'm like, nautical settings, pirates, different unique magic system. I'm like, yeah, that sounds exactly like a book that I would love. And I think I got to here, and I was listening to the audiobook, so I got like that much. And I was listening to the audiobook, and maybe that was my bad. Maybe I should just physically read it. But I just couldn't get into this book. I didn't care. I didn't care about the plot. I found that the main character was a little bit insufferable, and it didn't grip me. I was bored. I was bored listening to the audiobook, and as much as I liked aspect of the world, it didn't make sense. Some parts just didn't make sense to me, and it's not because I don't know fantasy. I know fantasy. It just didn't make sense. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, I kind of gave up on it. Maybe one day I will revisit it when the series is concluded and see how that goes. But right now, yeah, I DNF'd it, and I don't plan to continue anytime soon. Another book that I DNF'd was kind of a bummer for me, because I was really looking forward to reading this, and that is The Lies of Lena by Kylie Snow. So we're following a witch who lives in a world where witches are bad, and basically they're hunted down. In the beginning, she's a teenager, and she meets this very handsome guy, and they, like, sparks fly the moment they meet, and they have this romantic whirlwind relationship, but it doesn't work out. Hearts are broken, and then there's a time skip. Everyone's like, if you want to hurt and if you want to feel feelings, you'll read this book. So I picked it up because I want to hurt and I want to feel feelings, and I just couldn't. I think I got halfway through, and I'm just like, nope, I'm done. And it's not the story. Well, actually, it is a little bit of the story, because we are following two teenagers that are having a very adult relationship. And although I can withstand that in The Boys of Tommen, for some reason, I just kind of got a little grossed out reading very detailed scenes in this book. The other reason is I did not like the writing. It didn't click with me. You're in this like kind of fantasy world, and it's like I guess it's like a medieval fantasy world, but they eat pizza. Like, what? That all confused me. I'm sure that the plot gets better. I'm sure that, the feelings will get better, but for me, it just didn't work. This has a cult following, and a lot of people love it and say it's one of their favorite books of the year, favorite series, so I do recommend it. There's 2 out, and they're both on KU. Now we're going to get into the portion where I'm talking about the books that I have on pause. So I started them, and I do plan to continue on with them at some point. Just, I couldn't read them for whatever reason, or I couldn't get into them, or I just wasn't feeling the vibe that they had. So the first book is Broken Kingdom by Melissa Blair, and this one was brought to my attention because it is written by a Canadian Indigenous woman, and the world is very much inspired by Indigenous culture and history, and I really enjoyed all of that. So we're following this woman, and she is a fae, and they're basically colonized and not taken care of and not treated well. So we are following this young woman. She's a half fae, and she actually becomes like the assassin of this king. And so in order to survive, she just does whatever the king says, and she just drinks her sorrow. So she's a bit of an alcoholic. So that is touched upon in this book. Now, this is just me. I felt that the fact that they were fae was a little jarring. I feel like they could have been a different species or a different person. I don't know. I just feel like with romantasy, everybody just throws in fae. to insert magical abilities where there's so many other things that you could be. There's so many other things. Shapeshifters, vampires, like, I don't know, sirens or angels, or I don't know. I could probably list off a whole bunch of them. Demons, whatever. I just feel like the whole use of fae is getting a little tiring. And I felt this for a while, especially since fae equals magical person with pointed ears and can do anything. That's just kind of my little rambly, but I did really enjoy this book. I felt like it was very well written. This cover is absolutely stunning and her eyes follow you everywhere. Like, seriously. Absolutely stunning covers, and I'm really interested. Apparently this is an enemies to lovers, so we'll go with that. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it at the time. This is kind of like a Throne of Glass kind of setup almost. So it has the very same feeling of it, and I just wasn't in the mood for that. I think I was more in the mood for feeling feelings at the time. So I'm putting it down for now, but I do plan to continue it on when I'm feeling that very specific, like, romantic-y kind of feel. The next book that I've decided to put a pause on is The Jason Heir by Sarah Hashim, and honestly, this book was great. This book was great. It was fantastic. This is a romantic fantasy or a romantasy. I don't think it's a romantasy, but the world building is just incredible. This is an Egyptian-inspired world, and we are following very much like kind of the plot of a lot of books that I read. We're following people who are basically being suppressed and kind of building rebellion. And we're following a main character, and she has some secrets. I put this book down not because I disliked it, but because for whatever reason, my dyslexic brain just couldn't click with the writing. It was just, I struggled. Like, I read this for like a week and I only got here because I had to keep rereading the words, and it's not because it was terribly written. It's totally a me thing. So I'm waiting for the audiobook to come through my library, and I'm going to listen to the audiobook. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. I thought the world building was fantastic. I thought the idea was so great. There was a lot of creepy elements. Really enjoyed it. And it kind of gave me like a nostalgic feel of like how romance fantasy used to be before the whole fantasy thing took over. This does have a heavier world building, so just keep that in mind. There's a lot of things to remember, a lot of names and gods and stuff like that. So you'll have to do your homework for this one. The last book that I decided to put down, I just like literally put down 2 days ago, and that is Empire of Shadows by Jacqueline Branson. This is a really fun book, and I think that people who don't read fantasy or romantasy will really enjoy this, especially if you like The Mummy. And if you like Indiana Jones, if you like, oh my God, what's that series called? The one with the dragons? Lady Trent, the Lady Trent series. If you like the Lady Trent series for like that studious kind of woman that's going on like a little bit of a mission, you'll really like it because we are following a woman who is studious and she has this thing that she wants to discover. So she goes to South Africa to find it, and obviously very much like The Mummy, she needs a navigator or a guide to get her there, and she meets a hot scruffy guy, like literally like The Mummy, but you're in South Africa. So if you are looking for something like that, I do recommend it. The reason why I put it on pause is probably the reason why I put a lot of these on pause. It just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in the mood for it, and I wanted to feel feelings, so I picked up the book that I'm reading right now. But yeah, fun time, really well written. It's on KU, but also the audiobook is pretty fantastic as well. All right, we're at the end, and I am honestly so tired of talking. I haven't done this in a long time. I haven't worked those vocal cords in a while. So hopefully you stuck around until the end, and if you did, thank you so much. You can leave a fall emoji because it is now September, and we're now going into spooky, creepy season, which is my favorite. As always, thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.